In this video, I'm going to talk about something that's not often discussed in content creator world, at least on camera. In this video, I'm going to talk about money. Being authentic and real is integral to what a creator does, right? But there's this feeling sometimes, isn't there, that you can't quite trust what you're seeing online? And this is especially true for the world of coffee. You know, this is an industry that for hundreds of years has been steeped in exploitation, hidden profits, and a lack of transparency. There's almost this hidden suspicion that has been woven into the coffee community. And if I'm honest, that suspicion is for good reason. So today, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it means to be a content creator. And for me, especially in the coffee world. Now, this is a really different kind of video for me. Number one, there's no equipment or coffee in front of me. And normally I like to keep the focus on you, your coffee journey, the equipment you might be using, the coffee you like to brew, how you're going to brew it. But in this video, I wanted to take you behind the scenes in what it looks like to create helpful content for you. Consider this your invitation to go backstage into the world of content creation and how I run Daddy Got Coffee. My goal here is not just to be real and authentic, but to help give you clarity in how to interpret what you're seeing online, remove any misconceptions or myths you may have heard, and let you know how I run my channel. Now, a coffee roaster will sometimes do something called a transparency report. And this is something that not every coffee roaster does. I love it when they do it, but they basically release a lot of information on how they do their business so that you can rest assured that you're making a good choice as a consumer. And as a creator, you can consider this kind of like my transparency report. So here's a rundown of what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna drop some chapters into this YouTube video to help you jump to what's important to you. Number one, I'm gonna let you know how I got here as a content creator. Number two, I'm gonna explain why authenticity really matters in content creation. Number three, I'm gonna go into the landscape of partnerships and how I approach partnerships. Next, we're gonna talk about biases, and specifically within the world of product reviews, and I'm gonna talk about my own biases as well. Then I'm going to share a little bit about disclosure, how to do it in the world of online content creation, and why that is extremely important. Next, and I'm really excited about this one, for creators and aspiring creators, I'm going to give you some tips so that I can hopefully be of help to you in your own content creation journey. And then last, we're going to talk about mental health and family. Along the way, I'm going to talk about some questions that came in via my Instagram page. And if there is a burning question that you have that I don't answer, just drop it in the comments. This really is a complex and multifaceted topic, so I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but I want to shed as much light on this world as I can. All right, let's dive in. So let's wind back the clock a little bit here. I started Daddy Got Coffee in November of 2020. You know, I was always sharing about coffee on my personal Instagram, and I decided, let's just create a dedicated space for this. And once I started doing it, it took off, I'll be honest, a lot faster than I expected. I started getting sent free beans and coffee like almost right away, like within a couple months. And fast forward a year into November of 2021, this was only accelerating. I started getting shipments weekly and then almost daily. And I have to admit, in a lot of ways, that season was pretty fun. Until it wasn't. You see, I was getting sent all this stuff, no strings attached. But then slowly, something funny started to happen. These invisible strings would start to appear, and it started to feel not quite as fun. You know, I would get sent something and somebody would say, hey, no strings attached, we'd love to send you whatever. And then they'd follow up a couple weeks later with a message like, hey, we hope you're enjoying X. When might we be able to see some content? And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought you said no strings attached, like I didn't need to make any content, but all of a sudden there's kind of this, you know, murky expectation to create something in return for something that somebody sent you. And this is a very common predicament that content creators find themselves in. They start an account, they start growing, they get sent stuff, they don't know if they're gonna like it, they don't know if they would recommend it, they try it, and then there's this kind of murky waters that they find themselves in, where somebody has gone to an expense to send somebody something and they want something in return, but it wasn't really clearly stated on the front end what that was. So fast forward a couple months to early 2022, and I was really stressed out. I had almost 50 bags of coffee, a lot of which I loved, and I was scrambling to try and prioritize how to evaluate, taste, shoot, and share this content. Now, by this point, I had developed a bit of a good screening process. I could kind of sniff out if I was going to be able to enjoy a coffee before I said yes. So I was only accepting coffee I thought I would have a pretty good shot of enjoying, but I was totally overwhelmed with the amount of content that I had quasi-agreed to produce, kind of. It was really stressful. And if I'm honest with myself, there was something inside me that was starting to feel a little bit off about it all. That's when I knew I needed to shift gears with my channels. I connected with a friend, fellow content creator outside of coffee, who helped me turn my passion into a side hustle. He helped me develop a framework for partnerships in a way that I could sleep with a totally clear conscience, a way that didn't compromise my values or peace of mind. Fast forward to today, and it's the middle of 2023. I'm about a year into my journey on YouTube in earnest, and my Instagram channel continues to grow. Sarah and I just made the jump to becoming full-time self-employed, so this is now my full focus, and both Sarah and I are now running our own business in the digital world and supporting our family with it. So that's how I got where I am today. Let's take a few minutes and talk about authenticity. Authenticity really is the cornerstone of content creation. It's been one of my biggest goals since day one, figuring out how to balance creating the content that I love, earning an income, and keeping that crucial element of authenticity in the midst of the whole thing. You see, as a content creator, authenticity isn't just important, it's critical. If I lose authenticity, my ability to add value to your lives diminishes. You start to question if you can trust the words that I'm saying, not to mention the impact that it would have on my ability to sleep at night. I mean, I'm here to bring valuable information to you, and if you don't feel like I'm authentic, you'll start to question if what I'm saying is even real. One thing that I've learned in the midst of this journey is that boundaries in authenticity look different for every creator and every person. And they may look different for me than for you, and that's okay, because I am different than you. If I made my boundaries around what was authentic to you, that might not be what's authentic to me. So I need to set my boundaries in a way that feel authentic to me. There are certain lines that are a little bit more black and white, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But when it comes to authenticity, it all boils down to trust. Can you trust the words that I am saying? My commitment to you is this: I will always prioritize authenticity and, to the best of my ability, keep my cards face up on the table. Authenticity is one of the things that I love in content creation, not just when it comes to disclosures and partnerships, but even in my funny content. You know, you can see this. I love sharing those moments behind the scenes that, you know, between Sarah and I, they're real arguments or teasing that we have. And I love recording those and putting them up and having people say, hey, that's me too. We're all part of this shared experience. Authenticity brings us closer together. So sure, I'm always going to strive to be authentic in what I'm doing online. And that's just as true for a funny reel as it is for a partnership that I enter into. So in the spirit of authenticity and transparency, here's my approach on partnerships, biases, and disclosures. So let's start with partnerships. If you've been here more than a minute, you know that my goal on this channel is to help you make better coffee at home. And earning an income allows that goal to be my sole focus. But one question that I get a lot is, okay, you make videos online, how exactly do you make a living? How do creators earn money? And it's not actually as complicated as you thought. Creator income streams generally tend to fall into one of three categories. The first one is ads, and that one's pretty simple. When you're watching this video, if you see an ad and I'm monetized, YouTube will give me a percentage of that ad revenue. The second is affiliate or commission programs, and that's when you make a purchase and you've used either one of my links or a code, then I will make a percentage commission off of that purchase. And the third stream is brand partnerships. And these can look really different depending on the partnerships, but In general, what happens is a brand will ask me to do a certain thing in exchange for a certain amount of money. That can be doing a sponsored YouTube video, that can be posting a reel on Instagram, that can be as simple as sharing a story. It really looks different depending on the specific partnership. Now, not every content creator will utilize these avenues to produce income, but for most content creators who you will follow, especially if they're larger or a full-time content creator, they're likely using one of these streams at least to generate some income for themselves. Here's where things can get kind of tricky for content creators. Especially early on, it can be very tempting to get caught up in the moment and just say yes to every brand who comes knocking and want to send you something for free or give you a little bit of cash. You step one step up from that, and a slightly better approach is to say yes to brands or products that you feel like you align with personally. That's a lot better, certainly. Now, I try and go one step further than that even, and I try to curate my partnerships around what I feel like is not just what I enjoy, but what is the best for you. In fact, I'll drop a list of all my ongoing partnerships below, and you can check them out. These are brands that I align myself with and I feel like I can stand behind and are great for you, my audience. Now, these partnerships allow me to make this channel my sole focus and earn an income while supporting my family. You might find this surprising, but I say no to way more partnerships than I say yes to. Why? Because I'm committed to only entering into partnerships that I feel serves you, my audience, the best. So that leads me to a very interesting topic in the world of content creation: bias. If I accept a product for free or payment from a brand, does that impart a bias on the content that I create? Absolutely it does. But let's take a step back and look at bias in general. To understand bias, we first have to realize that we all carry biases. Anytime you express a conclusion or an opinion, you are doing so with bias, however your biases have developed. Unless someone is sharing a table of raw data and leaving you to pull your own conclusions, bias is at play. Our biases are informed by a lot of different factors, some of them pretty obvious and some of them more subtle. A bias can be influenced by your income bracket, where you live, by what your friends like, your favorite color, your wife's reaction to something when you pulled it out of a box. Biases come from everywhere around us. And yes, finances also contribute to bias. In my view, there's no such thing as an unbiased or wholly objective product review or content. Anytime I'm telling you what I think, or anybody else tells you what they think, they are doing so by using their own biases to draw conclusions. Even in those funny reels that I create, I am creating those reels with a bias to the things that I find funny. As a content creator, one of my roles is to help you understand where exactly my biases lie and how they might impact the things that I'm saying. And this is one of the reasons why, especially when I'm reviewing a product online and you're trying to figure out if you should buy it or not, I will always tell you how I got that thing. Now, if I get a product for free or through a partnership, does that mean I shouldn't review it? Well, if you think so, I'll always let you know when that happens so you can decide whether or not you want to watch. The truth is, there's no way I could afford to buy all of the equipment that I review on this channel, at least in this stage of my creator career. So without accepting some things for free, there just wouldn't be as many reviews. I got this question on my Instagram poll as I was preparing for this video, and it comes up a lot. What do you do with the gear after you're done reviewing it? Most of the time, brands don't ask for it to be returned, so I keep it on hand for future comparisons and lend it out to friends as well. Does this create bias? Sure. And as I've said, I'll always let you know where I got that equipment from so that you can decide if you want to watch that video. Keep in mind though, at a certain point, reviewing equipment for free to review really is work. Either way, my promise to you is to always disclose when I have an agreement with a brand so that you can make an informed decision. Now, speaking of disclosures, let's dive into the nuts and bolts of that next. So I always disclose where I get my products from in product reviews, but what do I do about disclosure in general? What about stuff that I got but I didn't review? What about Instagram Reels? What about all the random stuff you see in my videos? What about stuff that I got in a partnership last year and is now just sitting on a shelf in the background? I get a lot of questions about this, and often from other creators, and you can sometimes see spats about this online when a creator doesn't disclose a gifted product properly. And when I first started, I didn't always do this as well either. I had to learn. The one thing that I can say is that if you are a creator, learn the terms of service for the platforms that you are operating on, as well as the guidelines set and required by the FTC and the governing body of wherever you may find yourself living. This stuff is not about authenticity. It's about what's required of you and me as creators. YouTube has specific guidelines around paid product placements, sponsorships, and endorsements, and I'll drop a link to where you can read a little bit more about that below. If content that I am posting on YouTube fits into these categories, I'm required to click a little box that indicates that as a paid promotion and lets you, the viewer, know. On top of that, the FTC requires me to make an on-camera disclosure whenever I receive a product for free. On Instagram, I'm required to use the paid partnership feature and tag a product whenever I got something for free. This is a little detailed, but in the spirit of full transparency, here's how I interpret and comply with those guidelines. If I receive a product for free and feature it in a post or a story on Instagram, I need to tag that as a paid partnership. Now, lots of times a brand will say, hey, we'd love to send you this, no strings attached, classic, right? Now, if that's the case, I generally negotiate that I will accept this thing if I feel like I want to explore it, and I will do a story for that thing that is tagged as a paid partnership. And when I share that story and tag it as a paid partnership, I'm completing the value exchange as defined by Instagram's policies. Fast forward a couple weeks, months, or years, and you might see that same thing in the background of some of my content, or maybe even just me using that thing. I don't continue to use the paid partnership feature because I have completed the value exchange between me and the brand as we defined it. If a brand is specifically requesting a reel or a post of some kind, I always make that a paid arrangement, and some of that is just due to the volume of requests that I receive. And on the rare occasions that I agree to that, it's because I feel like that partnership is in the interest of you, my audience. Again, when I post this type of paid content, it is always tagged as a paid partnership using Instagram's content features. This level of detail may seem a little over the top. Why not just tag it #ad or gifted, or put it in the first line of your post caption? Well, Instagram and the FTC both say that doesn't work, it's not quite good enough, and you need to use the paid partnership tools that those platforms provide. And that's why having a clear and transparent system for disclosures is not just good for you, my audience, but it's also good for my own mental sanity. So, to all the content creators out there, what advice do I have for you? Well, first and foremost, decide who you want to be in the world of content creation outside of any brands or partnerships. You really need a North Star for the platforms that you create that is not part of any paid agreement. Be authentic to yourself and your mission first. And secondly, don't undervalue your voice. A friend of mine gave me pretty simple and direct advice. Stop making free content. So I drew a line in the sand and made a commitment to only work with brands who I've not only aligned with, but were willing to come to the table in a way that was mutually beneficial and allowed me to focus on these channels and create better content for you. Your voice is valuable, so why would you give it away and work for nothing? Also, always set clear expectations with partners up front. Put things in writing so that before anything comes in the mail, you know exactly what is required of you, and the person on the other end knows what they're getting in return. Will you post? Will you not post? Whatever you're gonna do, make it clear with the person on the other end, and if you can't get clarity or you don't feel good about what they're asking, be willing to walk away. You should also look up and create a media kit for yourself. This is something that showcases some of your key demographics as well as your rates, and if you're not sure how to set a rate, just set a rate. And if nobody says no, maybe you should raise it. And if nobody says yes, maybe you should lower it. And set guidelines and boundaries for yourself that you're comfortable sharing like this in a full level of transparency, not only with the people you're close to relationally, but everybody who follows you online. If you don't want to do branded content, don't do it. If you want to accept gifted products, follow the guidelines set by Instagram, YouTube, or wherever you're at and do it. If you want to do paid branded content, go for it. Just do it in a way where there's nothing inside of you that is telling you there's something weird going on. And if you feel that weird little feeling, you got to examine that really closely and try and get rid of it. Also, this is super practical, but be consistent in the content that you're creating. This is something I do pretty well on Instagram, and I'm still trying to build up that consistency here on YouTube. But what's most important is you need to be consistent in a way that's sustainable for you. And that brings me to something that is near and dear to my heart: family and mental health. For all the commitments I'll make to you around transparency, authenticity, and disclosures, there's one commitment that I have that will always come first. And that commitment is to prioritize my family and my mental health above content creation. After all, I can serve you best when I'm at my best, and I'm at my best when I'm fully engaged in my family. After all, this is called Daddy Got Coffee. I'm a dad before a content creator. I get a lot of questions around this, like, what are your working hours? How do you manage creating and everything else you have going on? How do you be a dad and also be a full-time content creator who is always on? Now, this is always evolving, but here's how I'm balancing this right now. When the kids are in school, I'm working. I get them on the bus, I work, and then I get them off the bus. And when they're home, I'm dad. Well, there are a couple exceptions. I publish my reels in the morning, usually when the kids are still here. And occasionally if I have a pressing deadline, I'll pull a late night or whatever. But on the whole, I try and keep really tight boundaries for myself around that time and keep the work that I do into a box that my whole family feels great about. Now, screen time in general, I'll say that's an ongoing conversation in my family and something that I don't always do the best, but I'm committed to creating those boundaries and screen-free spaces where I can be fully present in the world around me and pulled out of the world of content creation. Wherever you're at, creator or no, screen time is something that you need to pay attention to if you want to be fully present in your relationships. There is more and more data around how screen time and social media can be pretty hard on your mental health. So I believe that boundaries in this area are really important, and they're important for me. And even though I don't always get it right, it's something that I continue to work on. And we have an open conversation about as a family. I would encourage you, wherever you're at, not to ignore this. Don't tune out of your relationships and get sucked into your phone. Don't ignore your spouse while you're scrolling on Instagram. Take the step, be the first one to put down the phone, and be fully engaged in your marriage. Make an effort to give yourself guardrails that will prioritize your relationships. And for me, if my relationships aren't good, all of this content creation is for nothing. Just to recap a couple things. At first, I shared my journey as a content creator. Sarah and I kind of fell into this world, and even though we love coffee, we never thought that this would be my sole focus. I love helping you make better coffee at home, and now I'm fortunate to say this is how we support our family. I shared that my commitment to you is being authentic because that's how I build trust with you. Also, you can expect me to always disclose where I have a partnership and adhere to the guidelines for disclosures set by the FTC and the platforms that I'm on. And this is all because I want to help you. I want to help you discover those flavor awakening experiences of making coffee at home. And I want you to be able to have the best coffee at home as possible because it's great and it's a lot of fun. Now, especially if you watch this far, I want to know, what do you think about all this? I don't expect everybody to agree with me or the way I run my channels, but if there's a question that you have that I haven't answered, I would love for you to drop it into the comments so that I can get that answered for you. My commitment to you is to always, to the best of my ability, have my cards face up on the table here. If this video was helpful to you, even no matter how you found it, if you are a coffee person, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Believe me, there's lots of nerding out here, and you will, I think, love it. And I'm always game for your coffee questions. Until next time, happy brewing.